I recently completed Hunter x Hunter, and yes, I'm very sad, but amidst that sadness, I'm just in awe of its quality. It somehow manages to include everything that makes a good shonen anime good, while at the same time subverting and improving upon a lot of shonen tropes. One of my favorite things about the show is the moral ambiguity of its characters. Whether they are the expected bad guys or the good guys of the story, no character is perfect, except for Knuckle, who is perfect and pure in every way. Today I'll be covering the part of Hunter x Hunter that I find to be the most intriguing, Gon's character arc, specifically his descent from human to monster, and the character Meruem's paralleling evolution from monster to human. Quick heads up, there will be spoilers for the 2011 version of Hunter x Hunter and especially for the Chimera Ant arc, so please go watch the show or read the manga if you haven't already. Earlier, I mentioned that Meruem, the Chimera Ant King who first appears towards the end of the show, has a character arc that is parallel to Gon's. This is most definitely on purpose, and it serves to amplify the fact that Gon is an unexpected and morally gray protagonist by nature. This guy made an awesome video about Gon's psychology that explains everything way better than I could, but I'm going to give it my best shot. The Chimera Ant arc has my favorite ending song from the show, which in English means two sides of the same coin. I'm probably wrong, but I interpret it to be about how Meruem and Gon are themselves two sides of the same coin. But Meruem is a Chimera Ant, I hear you say. He's a monster with no sense of right or wrong, who would have gone on to end humanity if he hadn't died, while Gon is an innocent, naive child just trying to fight evil. And I'd say that is where you're wrong. Gon's actions have always been driven by his impulses and by his selfishness, not by what is morally correct. To prove my point, let's first take a look at Gon's closest friends. Killua may be a former assassin who, with time, grew to be a warmer, kinder person, but he still kills and manipulates people readily. Kurapika is also not afraid to embrace his darker side, most notably during the York New City arc when he is obsessed with revenge. And Leorio is, well, he's Leorio. All fantastic characters to be sure, and they're not bad people exactly, but compare them to some of the villains Gon has faced and there's a bit of a problem I noticed. How is Gon able to ignore the bad things his friends have done, past and present? He doesn't forgive their evil deeds and love them despite of it, he just never addresses it to begin with. Once I realized this, it opened my eyes to some other hints concerning Gon's true nature. When I first started watching Hunter x Hunter, I compared Gon to Emma from The Promised Neverland, who is selfless and caring to a fault. But now I see that Gon is just a little closer to someone like Light Yagami from Death Note than he is to Emma. Just a little. The reason is, Gon considers himself to be above morality. When someone opposes him, hurting or even killing that person would only be getting rid of an obstacle. When his friends harm and exploit people during the Hunter exam arc, for example, it's justified. But when someone he doesn't like does what he considers to be wrong, he's quick to point it out. His curiosity and narrow-mindedness lead him to befriend others, whether they're awful people or not, because as long as they're not immediately opposing him, they aren't enemies in his eyes. During the Chimera Ant arc, he wasn't trying to save the world at all. Sure, he may have assisted the others in doing so, but he had two goals and two goals only. To rescue Palm, and to save, later to avenge, Kite. So how does all of this relate to Meruem? I've now pointed out how complex Gon is as a protagonist, but although Meruem is delightfully evil and overpowered, he's just that, evil. That is, until he starts catching feelings for a certain someone. Komogi? More like Komo-ki to Meruem's character development. Get it? There are many things that make the Chimera Ant arc great in my opinion, but the core of the entire arc is its themes and how Meruem represents them. Before he is born, the antagonists are very clearly the ants. The queen gets a taste of humans, sends out her soldiers to kill more, and because of how her offspring take on the DNA of whatever she eats, the next batch of ants become eerily human-like. Seeing things escalate the way they did right off the bat served as a great introduction to the high stakes of the arc. But then Yoshihiro Tagashi, as usual, goes, "Ha! You think that was good? How cute." Suddenly, the more intelligent ants begin to question themselves, to battle with their human sides and establish their own personal sense of morality. If the Chimera Ants had simply been Chimera Ants, they wouldn't be so divided over the birth and immediate cruelty of the king. Meanwhile, Meruem's first interaction with humans don't look too promising either. And this should come as no surprise since he was born into death and destruction. His role is the apex predator, so of course he views humans as nothing more than food. Because if you're the predator, everyone else must be the prey. But this is where Komugi comes in. During Merom's research of human customs and pastimes, he wins game after game against the world's champions. Then suddenly, here comes this feeble, sniffling blind girl who keeps winning. One thing leads to another, and Merom starts to question the differences between ants and humans, battling with his own identity. Similar to how Gon brought light into Killua's life, or Kurapika's life, or Leorio's life, we see Komugi do that for the evil antagonist. His shifted views towards humanity are most obvious during his fight with Netero. Merom decides that humans are admirable, worthy of his respect, and it isn't long before he adds scary to that list, but that's besides the point. Here is the main takeaway. Merom was born to be evil, so he was evil. When he experienced and observed things for himself, he grew as a person. Even if he still wanted to enslave the human race, I'd rather take my chances with someone who's open to change, open to better themselves. But Gon, although his father is pretty crappy, has had great role models throughout his life. He'd never experienced death or true loss before going out into the world in pursuit of becoming a hunter. So it was that choice and the experiences that followed that slowly but steadily shaped Gon into a monster. Gon is not inherently a monster like Merom is. Gon is more of a blank slate, who, because he's a literal child, simply hasn't had the time to develop his sense of morality. Now, in the presence of murderers who are his enemies and murderers who are his friends, he's forced to prioritize survival in one way or another, unconsciously developing his twisted mindset out of necessity. After all, how else is an 11-year-old supposed to survive unless he's able to emotionally separate himself from the intense moral dilemmas he finds himself in every single day? I don't know about you, but I find that aspect of Gon's personality to be very unsettling. It's also wonderful in a way because just like Merom causes us to question what it means to be human, Gon's actions throughout the series makes us wonder, is a person good or evil depending on whether or not they've killed others? Does it depend on whether or not they feel remorse? Or is it entirely based on the reason for killing? So my final question, or questions, to you is, who is the real monster in the end? Who should we really be afraid of?
Made